Hello everyone, I am Nitij, and in today's video we are going to build a simple to-do application using React while managing the to-dos state using Context API and also persisting our to-dos in the browser's local storage. So let's get started with the demo first and then we will see how it can be built. So this is the finished product where we have first an input to add a new to-do, and then below that we have the added to-dos list. We can check any to-do item to mark it as completed or not completed, and when the to-do will be completed, then a completed at text is going to be printed beside the completed to-do. And because these to-dos are going to be persisted in the browser's local storage, even if we refresh the browser's tab, the to-dos are going to be loaded again when this application loads. So let's find out how we can build this to-do application in React. This is a boilerplate React application created using the create React app command, and I have also installed Tailwind CSS to style our HTML. Now for this application, first we are going to set up our context using React's Context API, and then we will create the components to add a new to-do and also to list down all the to-dos. And then finally we will integrate everything together within index.js and app component. So first I'm going to create a new folder within the src folder with the name contexts, and within this folder I will create a folder for our to-do context, so to-do context, and let's create a file with the name index.js. In this to-do context, first I'm going to import the create context module, which we are going to use to create our to-do context. So import create context and then const to-do context equals to create context. Next I'm going to create our to-do provider, so export const to-do provider, which we are going to export as well, equals to children. So to-do provider is going to wrap the children, and this is going to be an arrow function. Now in this to-do provider, first we need to add the state for our to-dos, so const to-dos and set to-dos equals to use state, and I'm going to initialize this to-do state with an empty array first. Now for each to-do we are going to add two actions. The first one is going to be to add a new to-do, and the second one is going to be to toggle the added to-dos. So let's just add the function to add a new to-do. This is going to be called as add to-do, and this is going to accept the argument for the to-do text. Let's first create a new to-do object, so const new to-do equals to a new object literal with the properties of first the text, and then we are going to set the completed property value as false by default. Next we are going to update our to-dos state, so this can be done by simply calling set to-dos, and then we can first spread out the existing to-dos, so to-dos, and then we can provide the new to-do as a new array item, so new to-do. That is all we need to do to add a new to-do. And now the function to toggle the existing to-do, so const toggle to-do equals to, this is going to accept the index for the to-do inside the array, which needs to be toggled for its completed state. So we need to provide the index as an argument, so this is an arrow function. So in this function I'm just going to use todos.map to return a new to-dos list where we have set the completed property of the to-do with this index as its inverse value, because we need to toggle the to-do. So const new to-dos equals to todos.map, and then for the callback function, this is going to accept the argument for the current to-do item and then the index. So if the current index is equal to the index argument, then we are going to toggle the to-do by returning an updated object, so return, and then first let's spread out the existing to-do properties, and then we can simply set the completed property value as its inverse, so not to do dot completed, and let's also set the value for the completed at property, which will simply indicate the date and time at which the to do was completed. So completed at is going to be, if the to do is going to be completed, then we are going to set the current date. So if to do dot completed, let me just press Alt plus Z to wrap the code to new line. So if not to do dot completed, then new date, and let's convert it to ISO string. Otherwise, if the to do is not completed, then we will simply set it to null. Now I have made a mistake over here. I will need to use the parenthesis instead of this curly brackets, so because this is an object. So if the current index is not equal to the index argument, then we can simply return the current to do item, which is being iterated as it is without any changes. Now finally we can call the set to do's function to set the new to do's, so new to do's. Now our toggle to do and add to do functions have been created, and now it is time to return our to do context provider. So return to do context dot provider. So this is going to wrap the children prop, so children, but we also need to provide the value which is going to act as the centralized context state. So value is going to be a new object. The object properties are going to be the to do's list, the add to do function, and also the toggle to do function. Now from this index.js, let's also export the use to do's hook, which we can use to access the to do context state. So export const use to do's, and this is going to be a function. So const context equals to use context, and the context is going to be the to do context, and then just return the context. And then as a default export, we can simply export the to do context. So export default and to do context. Now let's create the components for adding a new to do and also the to do list. So first I'm going to create a new folder with the name components, and let's create another folder with the name add to do. Now in add to do, I will create a new file with the name index.jsx. So add to do is going to contain the form which we are going to use to add a new to do. So I'm going to use a shortcut to generate the component arrow function. So this is going to be named as add to do, and inside this component, let's first import our use to do's hook, and then first we are just going to create the state for our to do text. So const text, and then set text equals to use state. This is going to be empty by default. And now let's access the add to do function, because that is all we are going to need in this add to do component. So const add to do equals to use to do's. So we are just destructuring the state object which is being returned by calling use to do's. So let's format this code once, and now let's return the form to add a new to do. So form, and when the form is going to be submitted, then we will just call a submit handler. So to create the submit handler, we can create a new function. So const submit handler equals to a new function. So first let's just call e.prevent default to prevent the default behavior when the form's submit button is going to be clicked. Now before I add any more code to this submit handler, let's just finish our form first. So on submit equals to submit handler, and for class name I'm going to add Tailwind's utility classes. So I will not go much into how I'm going to style all the different HTML components, because then it is going to take too much time and it will divert our focus and attention from building the to-do to styling the to-do components. So what you can do is you can check out this code later to see how the different components have been styled. So in this form, first I'm going to add an input which is going to be associated with our text state. So input, and then first type is going to be text, and then the text value is going to be the text state that we have added. Let's also add a placeholder. So placeholder is going to be add a new to do. Let's also add the on change event. So on change event is simply going to call a function which will simply set the text state. So set text, and the value is going to be e.target.value. And then finally let's style this text input using Tailwind. Now after this text we can add the submit button. So button, which is going to be labeled as add to do, and this button's type is going to be submit. We don't need to provide the click event handler for this button because we have already done that for the form by using the on submit event, but we can style this button using Tailwind. So let's add the utility classes for this button as well. So our form is completed and now it's time to finish our submit handler. So first we will check if the text has some value or not. If the text does not have a value, then we are just going to return from this function. So this can be done by simply calling if not text dot trim. If that's the case, then just return. Okay, hold on. Right. If that is not the case, then we can simply call the add to do function and we can provide the text as an argument. And let's also clear out the existing text content by setting the text state as an empty string. Now I think this is all we need to do for our add to do component. And now let's create the to do list component, and for that I will first create a new folder with the name to do list, and then let's add a new file index.jsx. Now again let's use the shortcut to generate the boilerplate component arrow function. This is going to be called as to do list. Now again for to do list also we need to first import the use to do's hook, because we can then use the to do's array and the toggle to do function. So const to do's array and toggle to do function, they can be destructured from the calling of use to do's hook. Now from the to do list we can simply return a div. Let's just first set the margin top of this div to add some spacing between the to do list and the add to do form. So I'm going to call to do's.map over here, and this is going to accept a callback function. So to do and index. All right. So instead of using these parentheses, we can use the curly brackets because we can then return the div directly. So let's first add the div for our individual to do item. So div, and then first let's provide the key value. So the key is going to be the current index, and let's also provide the styling information. So class name equals to Tailwind's utility classes. First let's add the checkbox to toggle our to do. So this is going to be done by adding a new input of type checkbox. So type equals to checkbox, and the checked state of the checkbox can be indicated by simply using the current to do items completed property. So to do dot completed. When the checkbox is going to be clicked, then we can use the on change event. So for on change we can simply call a function which is going to call toggle to do, and then we can provide the current index as an argument. Let me just wrap the code lines, and then let's style this checkbox as well by using Tailwind. Now for the to do text we can add a label. So the label text is going to be the to do dot text property. Now for the class name, we need to use templating. If the to-do is completed, then we need to show it as strike through or line through. Otherwise, we are going to show it as a normal text. So class name is going to be, this is going to be a template string. Let's first add the common classes, which is going to be always applied. Now if the to-do dot completed is true, then we can provide the styling where the text color is going to be gray and the text is going to be shown as strike through. Otherwise, we can simply show it as a black text. And now finally, if the to do is completed, then we can show the completed at value. So this can be done by simply checking if to do dot completed, and we also have the completed at property value. So to do dot completed at, then what we can do is we can simply show a span. The span is going to contain the text completed at, and this can be indicated as a new date, and the date is going to be to do dot completed at property value, and then we can convert it to local string. So to local string. Let's also style this span as a small text, and the text color is going to be gray 500. Now this is all I think we need to do to build our to-do list. Now it's time to use all of these building blocks for our to-do application and put them together. So first we need to open up our index.js file, because we are going to wrap this app component with our to-do provider. So first let's import our to-do provider. So import to-do provider, and then let's render it. So to-do provider, and this app is going to be the child of this to-do provider. Next, let's open up app.js file and remove everything that we are not going to need. Now let's first import the add to do component, and then we are going to import the to do list component. So from this app component, we are going to return first a heading which is going to say to do list, and then first we can render the add to do component, which is going to contain the form to add a new to do, and then we can return the to do list. Let's also style this parent div and this h1 heading by using Tailwind's utility classes. Now let's run this application to find out if our code is working as expected. So I'm just going to run the command npm and then start. So this is our to do application, and let's test by adding a new to do. So to do 1 and click on add to do. So our to do has been added. Now check if the toggle functionality is working. Yep, it is working as expected. But remember, I also talked about adding the feature to persist our to-do's state within the browser's local storage. To do that, we just need to make a couple of updates to our to-do context. So first I'm going to open up our to-do context index.js file. So in the to-do provider, first I'm going to update how we are setting the default value for our to-do's state. So instead of setting the default value as an empty array, I'm going to provide a callback function over here. In this function, first let's check if we have local to-dos available or not in the local storage. So local to-dos equals to local storage dot get item, and the item name is going to be to-dos. So if local storage to-dos are available, then we are going to use them as default value. Otherwise we will fall back to using an empty array. So if local to-dos, then use json.parse local to-dos, otherwise use an empty array. Now this is how we are going to load default to-dos from local storage. But how to save the to-dos to the local storage? To do that, we can use the use effect hook. So use effect, and then inside this effect function, we can first check if to-dos dot length is more than 0. If that's the case, then we can set new to-dos in the local storage. So local storage dot set item, the name is going to be to-dos and the value is going to be, hold on, json dot stringify and to-dos. Now this effect function is only going to be called when the to-dos state is going to be changed. Now let's save the code and check our application again. Okay, now it is loading the to-dos which were saved in the browser for our demo application. Now I can add a new to-do over here, such as pay bills. Now add this new to-do, and now let's refresh this page. So pay bills to-do item is being added to the list of to-dos because the to-do state is being persisted in the local storage. Let me show you where it is being saved. So this is our application tab, and inside this local storage you can see the to-dos key and its value, which is the stringified value of our to-dos array. Now if I will click on this checkbox to toggle the completed state, then the local storage is also going to be updated. So now completed is true for our pay bills and the completed at is added. Now if I will again click on this checkbox, then completed is set to false and completed at is null. So guys, that is how you can build a to-do application in React, where you can persist the to-dos state to the browser's local storage. If you found this video helpful, then please consider subscribing to this channel for more videos like this. Thank you for watching and happy coding.